And I think we are good to go. Welcome to the channel, guys, back with the Wandering Mariner. It is Thursday night, and I didn't know if I was going to get to this video today or not, but I've been thinking about it all week because you guys have been asking about the Ops Chief position, and that is what we are talking about tonight, is the Operations Chief position with Military Sealift Command. Now, I have a lot of history with MSC and the Ops Chief position. And I'm going to break down a little bit of the history of how I got into it so we can kind of discuss like where it is today and where it used to be. So this is just kind of the historical background behind the Ops Chief position. But prior to 2005, Military Sealift Command used to have military detachments on MSC ships where they would have electronics technicians, signalmen, back when the Navy had signalmen, ops chiefs, I think we had a yeoman, and had IT/radiomen. So radiomen, then they turned into IT techs. But that's kind of where the detachments used to be. And they used to be from 18 to 25 people on a lot of the supply ships, and some of the supply ships would have an officer and a chief and all these junior personnel. So, and that all went down to about 2004, 2005 was time that it finally got phased out. And the supply ships were taken over completely by civilian mariners. And they kept an ops chief position on the ship. So there would just be a chief, a Navy chief that was on board, and they had a small military detachment of sometimes a couple second classes and this chief that were there still doing everything. Well, around 2008, 2009, after they transitioned the IT and the radioman positions to civilian mariners, they said, you know what, let's do it with the operations too. Let's just take all the military off the ship. So that was the master plan. And around 2010, 2011, they really got into high speed of phasing out the Navy chiefs off the ship. And I ended up being like the very last Navy chief on an MSC ship that left the Washington Chambers, I think in like 2012. It got civilianized and they got turned over to a lot of guys that were prior service that fit within the qualifications to be ops chiefs. And a lot of them were chiefs in the Navy. They were retired chiefs that transitioned right away to MSC. And when this transition first started, MSC said, well, you know what, this ops chief position, they're still kind of running all the operations for the ship. We need to have an officer in charge of this because some of these guys were just E5s in the Navy. Some were chiefs and got a lot of experience, but some were just E5s, and we need to have a little bit more of a check valve. And captains were like, we really want an officer that we could, mentor and train. So MSC decided to take all the second mates, which are the navigators on the ships, and typically they used to be a watch standard. They'd have two third mates that would stand watch and a second mate. Well, the second mate got taken off the watch bill, and his title got changed on some of the logistics ships to be the Nav Ops. So he was a navigator, and he was the Ops officer. So he kind of took the brunt of everything, and now he was in charge of all the operations for the ship. Captains would look to them and say, all right, Nav Ops, what's the plan? Explain to me how the logistics of what's going down. And a lot of these young navigators didn't have the operational experience and of the job duties of what the ops chief was doing. So the navigators at that time, like 2012, 13, 14, were just looking at the ops chief saying, I'll tell you what, man, you handle the operations, I'll handle the navigation, and we'll just tag team it and get the captain the answers he wanted. And that worked for a while. But as time went on, some masters kind of looked at these navigators and said, you need to step it up. You're getting paid like $140,000, $160,000 a year. I'm looking to you to have the experience. You keep looking to this unlicensed guy to tell you the way it is. And there comes a thing or a driving force between ops chiefs and nav opses. And For me, myself, I had so much experience already at doing the job. So I had not just the knowledge of doing it, but I had a lot of wisdom of previous things that I've gone through and experience of doing that position. So I had a lot more experience than maybe a lot of other ops chiefs that were doing the job. But as time went on, these navigators felt a lot of pressure from the masters to learn the job. And MSC realized it, so they started sending the nav ops officers through training as well. Pretty much the same training an ops chief gets, the navigator or nav ops gets that training as well. So it's kind of you're the nav ops' right-hand man as the worker bee for the division or for that department. So the ops department is pretty much the nav ops is in charge, and then the ops chief's handling the day-to-day message drafting and kind of taking care of things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I just kind of want to give you all this background because it's going to come into play in some of the stuff I describe to you later, and so you guys get a better understanding. So here we go. So the ops chief position. Annual average salary is $104,301. And you know MSC had to add that one extra dollar on there. No rounding down for MSC. But I want to point this out that underneath that, I pulled up the actual job position and what it's guaranteed. So the base salary for this job is actually $60,738. So if you didn't work any overtime and you just worked 10 and a half months a year or 11 months a year, your salary is going to end up being $60,000 per year prior to taxes. So it's important that you understand what your base salary is, because where you land on a ship can be everything. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I just wanted to show you the difference. And the fact that the average is actually 104 shows you how much overtime you're going to be expected to do as an ops chief. And it's one of those jobs where it's feast or famine. It's either you're super busy, your hair's on fire, and you're getting lots of overtime, or you're not making so much money because it's a maintenance period or something else is going on. So getting into the qualifications. So under the job card, it says the ops chief's knowledge should be in these things. And this is a lot of messages. You have to be able to draft a lot of messages, and I'm not going to say you need to know how to do these because you're going to learn about them. Like if you get hired actually for the ops chief position, they're going to send you through an ops chief course where they're going to give you like basic formats for this. Like, and I'm going to give an example. It's kind of like if you went into Microsoft Word and you wanted to learn how to do a resume, they have sample resumes, but it's not like all the details of what you need to know and put in there. This is kind of what the ops chief position is. They kind of feed you the bare bones of a message and say, this is how you draft these certain messages. But to be hired, you're going to have to ramp up your knowledge on these messages right away. And one of the most important things is if you do get hired as an ops chief, there is not that many ops chiefs with Military Sealift Command. I'm going to say there's a maximum probably, because they've added and subtracted ships, I'm going to say probably 30 to 35 full-time ops chiefs with MSC. And it's a very small knit community. All the captains in MSC know each other eventually or talk to each other. They've served with each other. Like I've spent over 17 years of my life with MSC. I don't think there's that many captains out there that I hadn't met sometime over my years of service with MSC, of just dealing with different people. And I've seen some that are sailing as masters that were E5s in the Navy with me back in the 90s. So it's a very small knit community, and we really depend on each other to help each other out because not everybody is knowledgeable about everything. And it's one of those very small communities that you build relationships and friendships, hopefully, with your other fellow ops chiefs. So if an ops chief asks you for a favor, you really if you get hired, you really got to help them out, because there will be a day when you will need help from someone else. And I can't tell you how many times other people have helped me, and I've helped other people and trained other people, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But these messages, if you don't know what they are, you'll learn about them later, but these are all different types of messages that get sent out to make sure that the mail gets routed where it's supposed to be. That when your unreps are being planned and scheduled, you're working on the team as the nav ops as well as a liaison between the ship and the Navy. So the Navy's talking with usually the nav ops nowadays. Back in the day, it used to be the ops chief. Nowadays, the nav ops does a lot of the communication, or you guys at least tag team it together, and you're making sure that the ship's where it needs to be on time, communicating that with the captain. Captain's letting you know if there's issues, or he wants to divert the plan, or how things get changed up. So it's kind of a trifecta of operations. It pretty much goes from the ship's master to the nav ops to you on a lot of taskings. You're also working with all the department heads on the ship, because you're talking to the medical service officer, because you got to find out about who's sick, who's not sick, or what the issues are. You're talking to the supply officer of when he wants stuff delivered. You're talking to the chief mate a lot about everything from force protection to when he wants this brow delivered, when he wants the, water, septic from the chief engineer. All these different issues. You're walking around the ship and talking to all these department heads to get their inputs on these messages that you're sending off the ship. So you're drafting all this information, putting it together, and then that nav ops is going to check it, and then the captain's going to check it, and all those department heads are going to take a look at the message as well. So you really get a chance to build a lot of relationships with a lot of different people on the ship. So it's cool in that way. I like that. So during underway replenishments and during operations, you are typically on the bridge a lot of the time. You will be talking on the radios, so talking in chat, relaying the informations to the mates on watch and to the captain of what's happening, and they're going to be telling you what they want passed on to the Navy. So you're communicating back and forth with typically CICs or the bridges of other ships and explaining certain things of the evolution. So I'm not going to go too in detail, but it's just you're a liaison. That's your main job title as an ops chief, is you're a liaison between the Navy and the ship's chain of command. So you're communicating back and forth and helping everything out. So you are kind of the Robin, and the nav ops is Batman. So that's kind of the way it works. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about the ops chief position, just due to the fact that what you do on the ship, you carry nowadays, you're carrying a TS clearance, or at least a secret on most of them, but there are duties that you might do that will require a top secret clearance. So if you can't qualify for a clearance, you had bad credit, you've had issues, don't bother applying for the ops chief position. That's just my 2 cents. Now, I don't work for MSC. I'm not telling you won't get hired, but I'm just saying you'll probably hit hurdles and it won't work out for you most likely. So it's one of those jobs where you need to dot all the I's and cross all the T's in your application and make sure everything's there, that you are capable or knowledgeable about those jobs. Because you, as the ops chief, might be the helo control officer at the tower. You're drafting a lot of messages. You're getting up early. You're reading all the message traffic that comes in for the ship. And then you're, feeding that out. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the history of it, because the knowledge base that you're expected to know as the ops chief. Now, I know the job title says you got to be an E5 or above or an LDO, and you have to meet all these criteria to qualify to be an ops chief. And everybody goes, I qualify. I should put in for this job. But the things I want you to understand with the ops chief is, like, if you were in the Navy or the Coast Guard and you were a navigator or a quartermaster and you were thinking about applying for this ops chief position, great. But I want you to think of it as kind of an E5 position in the Navy or the Coast Guard. That's the level you're at. You're going to be kept, kind of maybe get treated like a first class sometimes. But for the most part, E5, E6 is kind of like your unlicensed position ranking when it comes to MSC. You're not an officer. And your berthing is decent. You're considered a chief, like the electrician's chief, and like a lot of guys are bosun mates and people that have more experience on the ship. So your berthing digs are usually a little bit better than some of the other crew members, like entry-level positions. But as far as that position, there's no like departmental upward mobility for you. Okay? And that's super important that you understand that. Now, if you are a quartermaster or an OS, I think that instead of coming in to MSC as an entry level with just your MMC, if you have the seat time, and I'm going to do a future video about this because I think it's super important. It doesn't matter. There's so many ratings in the Navy that you will qualify for to come in as an able-bodied seaman from the get-go. And that is a big leg up. And you can transition over to Ops Chief, or as an AB, if you decide to go AB instead, you can become bosun mate and then up to, bosun one day. There's upward mobility in deck. And also, there's AB watchstanders, which is another avenue to go to get your license to become a third mate. And I really feel like the upward mobility opportunities for you as an AB are there more to level up than as an ops chief. Now, the pay is really good as an ops chief. The position is very good. I mean, you're not on a deck. You're not, sweating your balls off. You're not working your tail off. You're at a computer most of your day, or you're walking around and talking to department heads and getting their feedbacks for messages and whatnot. But it's not like a physically arduous job, but it's plateaued. If you're an ops chief with MSC, unless you seek out additional training or transfer, like go seek out training to become a purser or really push yourself to go get your third mate's license outside of MSC, that's it. That's where you're going to peak. And there's nothing wrong with that. $104,000 a year is nothing to wag a finger at. But you are gone away from your home, most likely 6 to 10 months a year. And that is a lot of time to be out at sea, to be away. And I know the money's good. And money is relative, Unlike the Navy, you don't get tax-free money like you did when you were in the Navy. You don't get housing allowance like you did when you were in the Navy. You lose a lot of those benefits that we had in the Navy, and you're living on board the ship. Although the digs in your room are a lot nicer than the Navy ever was, it's back and forth. And I want people to kind of realize that that's the plateau. You should be looking to level up. If you're coming to MSC, don't just be satisfied in the position you're in. Because if you do, you can grind. But to me, working as an ops chief for 20 years is about the equivalent to working in the factory at General Motors for 20 years. There's nothing wrong with it. But you're going to sacrifice a lot of your life and a lot of your labor. In the end, you're going to have some money saved. You're going to have a pension. You're going to have all these things. But it's just a harder life, I think, personally. I like to see everybody that comes to MSC have a chance to level up and keep growing. And that should be your focus. Unfortunately, I see a lot of people that don't do that. And good or bad, it's up to them. It's their lives. They're grown men and women. But I think that if you take the opportunities to seek out better avenues, it might be better for you. And I think the ops chief position, if you got out of the Navy or the Coast Guard as an E5 and you're looking for like the next thing and you want to check out the Merchant Marine, and it's a great chance to kind of an entry level position for prior military. But I came in as an AB with MSC. I got hired as an AB. And I went through NEO and they're like, would you like to be an ops chief? And I was like, no, I don't want to be an ops chief. And I went as an AP for a year and a half, almost 2 years before I switched over to ops chief, because I was looking for my third mate's license at the time and I needed to get deck watches. I had to get that sea time and actual watch standing, where doing it as an ops chief, it's very difficult because you're not a full-time watch stander like you are on the bridge actually doing the watches. So just wanted to share that with you guys. Hopefully this brings up a lot more questions for you guys. Make sure you leave your comments below. Like the video because it helps out the algorithm, helps the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.